John Cordy, and I just wanted to tell you about their new hats that I'm offering on my website. I'm only joking, obviously. However, I did want to talk you through some of my favourite amp models on the HX Stomp or Helix. If you're a new user to the HX Stomp or Helix, I think maybe you'll get this feeling of potentially option paralysis, and maybe you'll think I don't really know what I should be using to get the sounds that I want. In that case, my general advice would be pick an amp or something that you're familiar with. So if you're used to using a Plexi in real life, why not just go for the Plexi style amps? If you're a Fender kind of clean person, then it makes sense to find one of the Fender amps and use that. Use what you're familiar with. If it's an AC30, if you're a Mezza guy like myself, you've got the Mark IV stuff and also the Lone Star, Cali, Texas stuff. So I think it makes sense to start off with something that you're vaguely familiar with and go from there. But once you're past that point, I think it's kind of fun to explore some other stuff. So I just wanted to share with you what my favourite kind of tones on the device are. So those of you that are familiar with what I do, I'm kind of into Eric Johnson and stuff, and when it came to putting together an Eric Johnson style clean, I wasn't finding necessarily that the Fender simulations or amp models were necessarily getting me in the ballpark that I wanted. So I decided to look outside of that, and I found the mail order twin, which is supposedly based on a Silvertone 1484, which was made by Dan Electro. But anyway, it's a 2.6L6 power tube amp and a Jensen speaker is what they initially put in it. So I guess the 6L6 is maybe why I get that kind of Fender flavour from it. But it's also got quite a bit more sparkle than some of the other Fender amps. So this is how that sounds. This is my preset Eric Clean, which is based on me trying to get that kind of Eric Johnson clean tone. So it's quite a thin tone, not in a bad way, but to really accentuate Strat pickups and get that nice sparkly sound that I like. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got sort of more mid-heavy kind of Fender clean tones, and for this I like to use the Fullerton amp models, particularly the Fullerton Jump, which is what I'm using here. I set the drive kind of low, about 1.2, 1.7, so it's basically staying completely clean, but it's got a nice kind of mid-focus sound, I think, and it really works well with single coils as like a thicker single coil sound that can work nicely as a lead tone. So here's how that sound. I think it's based on an early Fender Tweed Deluxe or something like that. Apparently it's based on a 1958 Fender Tweed Deluxe, if you're interested in what it was modelled off of. I don't know how one of those actually sounds, but to me it's got kind of a mid-focused thicker sound than perhaps like a Fender Twin or something else, which works really nicely for single coil. So here's how that sounds. My most favoured amp on the Helix, an HX Stomp, is one that isn't really even based in the real world. It's the Line 6 Litigator, which there's on the gear page, Ben Adrian, who's one of the designers. I think basically he was going for that approach of a modded Fender type circuit, which we might think of as something like a Dumble or a Fuchs or a Two Rocks. Obviously it all comes from Dumble originally, but they're modding Fender designs to get something different out of the amp. I think that's basically what they were going for with this amp. It's not modelled on anything specific, but that kind of sound. I use the Litigator a lot of the time. I use it for lead tones, I use it for clean tones. I think for me it's my favourite thing on the device. So I started off the video with that, and I'm going to end the video with that. But so those are my 3 amps that I think you should probably check out if you haven't already. The Fullerton, particularly the Fullerton Jumped, for nice thick single coil lead tones of a tweed flavour maybe. The Mail Order Twin if you're looking for a Fender type tone but with loads of sparkle. And then the Litigator just for something that's not necessarily even particularly real world, but I think is a really, really good sounding model for cleans and distortion across the board. So yeah, hopefully this is somewhat useful or helpful. You can get all of my presets in the description if you wanted to. Everything that I used on the video is in that folder, so if you liked any of those tones, maybe check that out. But hopefully this was useful, and I'll catch you for another video soon. Cheers.